This manga right here, this was made by a crazy person. No sane human being could even think up the content that is in this manga, much less depict it in an interestingly eerie way. That being said, this series is one of my favorite ongoing manga in Jump, and it has been for a while now. The manga in question was made by a crazy person for crazy people, and in this video I will be talking about the enjoyable insanity that is Dandadan. The story of Dandadan is one that is strange even on its surface. Our two main characters, Momo Ayase and Ken Takakura, who I will be referring to as Okarun from here on out, are two high school students with some niche interests and beliefs. Momo is a staunch believer of supernatural entities, spirits, possessions, ghosts, creepy shit like that. This is because her grandma is a spirit medium and raised her to be wary of creatures not limited to what normal people could see. You would never guess that Momo would be the spiritual type due to her rather blunt and abrasive personality, but her grandmother's impact on her life supersedes any of her basic character traits and leads her to her current beliefs. Okarun, on the other hand, believes in aliens and the occult, UFOs, UAPs, and other conspiracy theory bullshit. His interest in creatures that exist in space is due to him being a loser. Point blank period. Like, canonically, that is the reason he is interested in that stuff. You see, Okarun is a socially awkward nerd who decides to look to the stars for a sense of companionship, and honestly, that's a pretty good way to cope with awkwardness if you ask me. I mean, it could be much worse. He could have started a podcast and became a misogynist, so all things considered, no real judgment from me. Anyway, these two characters meet randomly one day and their beliefs clash in a pretty funny way. Okarun, when confronted with the idea, thinks that spirits existing is silly, and Momo, being somewhat offended by this loser thinking she's insane, retaliates with equal hostility to the idea of aliens. In order to settle this, the two do the only logical thing possible. They send each other off to sites that are supposed to be crawling with aliens and spirits to prove that they are real. Okarun goes to a popular haunted spot and Momo goes to a place notorious for alien activity. Now, if this is a normal manga, you'd expect some typical looking aliens to show up and attack Momo and some sort of established, really common Japanese spirit to attack Okarun in a relatively tame way. Fortunately, this isn't a normal manga, and the weird shit really starts to kick into gear, because Okarun, while in this haunted house, runs into an old lady spirit that, let's say offers up a part of herself for, let's just say a part of Okarun. I'm actually not sure if I can repeat exactly the bargain that she offers, but that should clue you in on exactly what his predicament is and exactly what this old lady offered him. Expectedly, he freaks out and fucking dips as fast as he can, but that turns out to be a horrible idea as he'll be cursed if this old lady overtakes him in a race, and unfortunately, she is fucking fast, speeding past him and cursing him in the process. Meanwhile, Momo sees some creepy aliens that jump and capture her in order to advance their species by reproducing with humans. No, you didn't hear that wrong, and no, the image that you are seeing on screen is not altered by me. Someone wrote this. Someone had the idea for this and then put this to paper and then drew on that paper. Anyways, insanity of this manga's existence aside, I've been giving the synopsis of the first chapter for a while, so let's speed this up. In the second half of this chapter, Okarun shows up in a half-possessed state attacking the aliens while trying to save Momo. He has a pretty sincere character moment where he shows his thanks to her for acknowledging him, but the sincerity of this moment quickly turns into a joke as he gets packed up by the aliens without much of a fight. Momo then unleashes her mystical spirit powers and beats up the aliens somehow. She then has to use her newly found mystical spirit power to suppress the granny spirit's presence. Unless they go to get Okarun's dick back from Turbo Granny, she won't stop occupying his body, which kinda sucks. And that's just chapter 1. Pretty insane stuff if you ask me. This chapter, in all honesty, could be the most wild content that 99% of other manga would have. But for Dandadan, this is just the tip of the iceberg. The designs of the creatures, the fights, the situations, even the personalities of new characters introduced into the story continue to have a weird flair to them and only get weirder with time. Okarun and Momo function as the somewhat normal people experiencing the weirdness of this world, and they act as good perspective characters for the audience. Now, if you haven't read this manga, it may seem like Yukino Butatsu, the author of this series, is trying to make the manga weird for the sake of it. But I will say that the strangeness is one of the most refreshing things about this series. It doesn't feel like it's forced in or that This author is just trying to make it different. In a time where many other manga take heavy inspiration from the past and that inspiration is worn on their sleeve, Dandadan strays from that trend quite a bit. This isn't to say that it takes no inspiration from other works in the genre, or even that taking inspiration is bad, but it's refreshing to see it blend these inspirations together so well with completely enjoyable randomness that those inspirations, those previous works, are almost indistinguishable, and it gives it a wholly unique feel that I really appreciate about this series. This uniqueness is why I can confidently say that there is no other manga that I've read that is like Dandadan, and I've read some weird shit. On top of this, the series does a great job with presenting these weird ideas very nicely. The art, the choreography, the paneling, the detail, the composition of certain panels, the character designs, everything about this manga looks top tier. It's actually insane how well drawn this manga is, considering that it comes out on a weekly basis. The angle used for moments that are supposed to have an eerie feel to them is perfect. Some of the fight choreography rivals manga like Sakamoto Days and Jujutsu Kaisen, and the impact that many of these spreads have contend with artistically perfect series like My Hero Academia, Black Clover, and even One Punch Man at times. That, mixed with the zany subject matter of this series, creates an artistic tone that matches up the storytelling style that Yuki no Butatsu goes with. If that wasn't impressive enough, Dandadan is a manga outside of the comedy and romance genres that actually tackles romance and comedy really well, really consistently. Unlike shonen of the past like Naruto and arguably Bleach, depending on how you feel about that, I do think this manga handles the dynamic between two characters romantically in a way that is involved enough to make sense, but not so ham-fisted that it borders on just being a romance manga with a hint of fighting in it. In fact, hot take of the video here, Dandadan handles the budding romance between Okarun and Momo better than the romance manga currently in Shonen Jump right now. To be fair, the bar is in hell, but I do think that it is a nice touch to add onto the series, and comedically, this manga fires on all cylinders all the time, even more than the romance does. Not only does Okarun bounce off Momo really nicely in slice of life downtime moments, but characters that are introduced down the line like Gigi and Momo's granny also bring laughs to the table. And honestly, the fact that this series brings a uniquely crazy, comedic, and interesting feel at a time where something like Chainsaw Man exists speaks volumes to the creativity flowing through these pages. If you decide to read Dandadan, expect to find an extremely well-rounded and competent manga that will probably be some of the best content you'll find on a weekly basis. The series is currently around 70 chapters as of the recording of this video, so if you do want to catch up and discuss the week-to-week wackiness with the community, the barrier to entry is relatively low right now. Now, at the beginning of this video, I told you that this manga was made by a crazy person for crazy people, and while that remains true, I'd say at this point you would have to be absolutely crazy yourself to miss out on the series that is Dandadan.